Now that you're familiar with the user groups, let's go ahead and create a new user for our website. What I'd like to do is I'd like to create some content for the front end of the website that will be available only to our volunteers. So when somebody logs into the front end of the website, they'll be able to see a piece of information that's just for volunteers, and you have to use the login in order to see it. So I'm going to create a new user. And creating new users is so simple. I don't understand why people do this all the time. I have people who call me up and ask me to take a look at their Joomla sites, and they send me a login that's usually the login that they use to access the website. And fortunately, I'm an honest person, and so that works out just fine. But not everybody is as nice and honest as I am. If you're going to share a login to your website, looking at a new developer, for example, you should really create a brand new user account for them so that they can see your website. And then when they're done with it, you can delete that user login. It's a much better way to go than giving people access to your own user account. And it's just so simple. So I'm going to go to Users, User Manager, Add New Users. And I'm going to enter a name of Volunteer, a login name of Volunteer, a password of Volunteer, and an email of volunteer@samoka.org. Down on the bottom of the screen, you can assign this particular user to as many or as few user groups as you wish. In my case, I just want them to be registered users, which is already checked off here on the list. I could uncheck registered and I could check off any of these other names that are here on the list, but I'm just going to leave this as a registered user. Over on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see that we have several additional options that we can customize for this specific user. We could assign them a specific backend template style. I talked about that earlier, as you could give somebody a Hathor interface instead of giving them the Bluestork interface. We can assign them a language. So if our volunteers all speak French, we could give them the French language on the front end and the back end. We could also assign them a specific editor. Right now, the default editor is JCE, but if this user really wanted to work with TinyMCE instead, we could do that. We can assign them a specific help site, and we can also give them a time zone that they're working in. Otherwise, they take all of the defaults for these, for the most part, from the global configuration screens. Go ahead and say save and close. And you'll get this error at the top of the screen about could not instantiate mail function. What that means is, normally when you create a new user on your website, an email is generated to the address that you just created. So in this case, an email was attempted to be sent to volunteer@samoka.org. But because we're running on a local web server, either WAMP or BAMP, that means that it's not configured to send emails, and you get this error at the top of the screen, which is totally fine. If you had this on a web hosting environment, that email would be sent. So now that we've created that registered user login, let's see how it works. As I said before, registered users are allowed to log into the front end of the website only, but they can't log into the back end of the website. So if I log out of my Joomla site here, and I put in volunteer as my username and volunteer as my password, I will discover that I am not allowed to get in, and I get an error that says I don't have access to the administrator section of the site, which is absolutely true. So I'm just going to log in again as admin. Then I'm going to flip over to the front end of the website, and from here I'm going to enter my username of volunteer and my password of volunteer. And from here you'll see that I in fact have logged into the front end of the website. Nothing changed on the website because I haven't configured any special content for people who have logged into the website yet, but my login form is working and I am able to log in. So creating logins for users is very quick, very simple, and very straightforward. And you should definitely create new users instead of giving people your own username and password to get into a Joomla website.